You know, Canada's always been good luck from Bob Seger, from session players from Canada, producers from Canada. Most people in Canada in the 70s and 80s made his songs bigger on the Canadian charts than any place else in the world. Now, this song went number one in Canada, and behind the tracks, we're going to talk about what I call beer hall rock or pool hall rock. This is called Mainstreet. If you're were alive in the spring of 1977, and I hope you were. I know I was. It was on everybody's radio. Now, Mainstreet, written by and recorded by Bob Seger, the Silver Bullet Band, released in April '77 as the second single from the album Night Moves. The song peaked at number 24 in the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 and became a staple of classic rock radio. It also reached number one on the very important Canadian singles charts at the time. Now, again, it's considered on the soft rock, heartland rock, pop rock, and beer hall rock genre. Now, Seeger stated that the street was singing about his Ann Street, just off Main Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he grew up. There was a pool hall there where they had girls dancing in the window and R&B bands playing on the weekends. He said, again, that's going back to the Night Move situation, where I was writing about my high school years in Ann Arbor and what it was like. The discovery, the total naivete, and fresh-faced openness that I went through. It was sort of an entire awakening of my life. Before that, I was kind of a quiet, lonesome kid. Now, Seeger later said in published reports on the origins of the song, just like Night Moves, the song rings true. What did he tell you about writing? Do you say you have to write about what you know? I grew up near that street corner. My older brother was a lot of trouble and I was not. My parents always called me the good one, and he said, you're the one we can trust. So at age 10, 11, 12, I was able to walk through Ann Arbor until midnight if I felt like it. There was a club in this blues band from Chicago named Washboard Willie was playing there. In the window of this club, there were people dancing, and occasionally a beautiful girl dancing in the window. And at my age, we were starting to wake up the girls. I would sit out there and watch through the window and listen to this great R&B. I'm looking and I'm listening and thinking this is what I want to do with my life. The club was very lively, and to a 12, 13-year-old kid, that was pretty cool. I loved the group because it was Chicago blues, and the women are dancing, and you start to think the women are looking pretty good. So all that stuff ended up being the elements for the song Main Street. Ultimate classic rock critic Jeff Gottlieb cites Main Street as an example of Seeger's love for beautiful losers. He notes that Seeger sings about a dancer in a downtown dive rather than a waitress, prom queens, or college girls who would be the subject of other singers' songs. And he notes that unlike in their songs, the singer doesn't try to save or run away with the girl, but is content to just watch her walk on by him. Now, Billboard felt the imagery used by the singer to remember his love for the bar dancer was reminiscent of the great Van Morrison. Billboard also found the organ counterpoint to be clever. Cashbox eventually compared it to the Night Moves, saying this haunting ballad hits home in the same emotive chording, expressive vocalization, and dramatic close. Record World said it focuses on Seeger's mellower, more introspective side. Now, classic rock history critic Janie Roberts rated as Seeger's seventh best song, calling it an ode to the romantic backstreets of hope and despair, found on Springsteen's classic 1975 work, Born to Run. The song is in the key of E lower major. During live performances, the iconic Pete Garr guitar intro was replaced with a sax intro. Now, critics are adapted from the liner notes of Seeger's 94 Greatest Hits compilation. Seeger did the lead vocals with Barry Beckett on keyboards, Pete Carr on lead guitar and acoustic guitar, Roger Hawkins drums and percussion, David Hood on bass, and Jimmy Johnson on rhythm guitar. Now, Cashbox called the song a haunting ballad that hits home with the same emotive chording, expressive vocalization, and dramatic close as Night Moves. VH1's Mike McPadden selected Main Street of one of Seeger's 10 most essential songs, describing it as a sad, sweet, soulful, even spooky, for how it evokes the emotions of a hopeful or frustrated young man watching a woman he is too scared to approach. McPadden particularly praises the keyboard playing for how it complements the song's melancholy mood. Classic rock history contributor Janie Roberts also selected Main Street as one of Seeger's top 10 songs, particularly praising the opening guitar line and describing the song as an ode to romantic backstreets of hope and despair, found on Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. Now, on the RPM charts in Canada, number 1 on the Billboard Top 100 in States, number 24, US Cashbox Top 100, number 19. Year-end charts in Canada, 52, and US year-end charts, 152. Now, went gold in the United States at 500,000 copies. Was not a hit in Europe pretty much, was not a hit in especially England. So why do you think the song is so dynamite for people of a certain age. Well, if you're in your 70s in 2025, I'm going to give you some of the lyrics, and if it rings a bell, you know what I'm talking about. So this is, you can see Bob Seger passing by the window. I remember standing on the corner at midnight trying to get my courage up. There was a long, lovely dancer in a little club downtown. Loved to watch her do her stuff. Through the long, lonely night, she filled my sleep, her body softly swaying to the smoky beat down on Main Street. In the pool halls, the hustlers and the losers used to watch them through the glass, while I'd stand outside at closing time just to watch her walk on past. Unlike all the other ladies, she looked so young and sweet, and she made her way alone down an empty street. Now, not many lyrics in the song, but sometimes even now when I'm feeling lonely and beat, I drift back to time and I find my feet down on Main Street. So it's a very, very simple song with very short, simple lyrics. But like I said, it gives the listener an opportunity to expand on their own memories or their own thoughts about what it was like growing up. I'll give you an example. When I was a young kid, I would walk the streets of Campbellton, New Brunswick, and Dalhousie, and it wasn't a big downtown, but to see the people standing outside the Capitol Theatre in Dalhousie and the Paramount Theatre in Campbellton, these were all my contemporaries, and to see all the beautiful Acadians and Anglophones and different people in different backgrounds. And what's kind of weird about this, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't go there with any friends with me. There wasn't like 2 or 3 people hanging around like a breakfast club style. I would usually go there. My sister Valerie would drop me off Thursday night before she went to bingo, and I would go to a movie, or my dad would drop me off in Campbellton for a 2 o'clock matinee or the evening showing. And all the times I remember, well, I mean, Main Street could be your Main Street community, or it could be literally Main Street. Give an example. Downtown Main Street in Woodstock, New Brunswick, where I spend a lot of my days through the years, not the same downtown as even as Batters back in the day, because there was no movie theater, no big chain restaurant, just a Tim's and and an Irving and a couple of banks. But why Main Street is very popular to a lot of the Bob Seger songs. If you like Bruce Springsteen at the time, and Bruce Springsteen wasn't the Bruce Springsteen we know about him now. He was just a songwriter and a very strong one-album performer. But like Bob Seger took that kind of John Cougar Mellencamp before there was a Johnny Cougar and tell a story, and it wasn't a country song. Usually this would be good of a country song. I don't know if any country artist has ever covered this. I would expect so. I like to hear like Conway Twitty or even Buck Owens or Al Jackson do this. So Main Street, one of his most important songs, and like a story song that Bob Seger could tell. This is his primary example. Bob Seger can tell a story as good as any rock and roller of all time, because Michigan and Canada supported each other at the time, and we made him the star he was, because I think Bob Seger got most of his major play from us. We considered him a friend of Canada, like a lot of people in Michigan, and we were glad to help his early success. So if you like what we're doing here with our musical tributes on Behind the Tracks, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Don't forget, Canadian elections, still advanced polls. You can vote today. I think we had 1/10 of the country voted. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, in the States, I don't know if you know this, you don't have to register a Republican or Democrat or whatever. You just go in and vote. We don't follow you around like a bunch of sheep there, right? We are legislative democracy, 341 ridings. You can't ruin the vote here, because everybody in Canada has more of rights as a voter than the States will ever have. So anyway, but if you're American trying to vote in Canada, stay home. You know what I'm talking about. I've seen it happen before. Thanks for listening, and keep your stick in the ice.